You let us go right now or I set this thing off.
I can see the timer, asshole.
What you going to accomplish?
Directed and co-written by Jean Luc Herbulot, we are talking Zero. The other writer was Hus Miller, who also stars in this movie and was a producer. The most recognisable name here is actually going to be Willem Dafoe, who is, I guess, our antagonist, but he is only a voice on the phone. He is a audio performance only. It's very good, but it's not to see him on screen, and he's not really credited until the end credits here. So yes, but Willem Dafoe does have a big presence in the movie, albeit only an audio one. Anyway, what is the story? It focuses on two Americans who wake up in Senegal and they have a bomb attached to their chests. And they are given a series of instructions and have to complete a number of tasks with the promise that they will be released once these tasks are done. And as the tasks go on, they don't really know what they're going to be asked to do, but quite often it involves people getting killed, let's just say. And you know, these two guys, they don't know each other, they don't really know what's kind of going on. What will happen? You will have to watch the movie and find out. So think in a way a little bit like the scenes from Die Hard with a Vengeance, Die Hard 3. So let's discuss what I think works in this movie's favour. So it is a pretty tense film. Now you are kind of along the ride with these two Americans because you don't really know why they've been selected, what the kind of the end game is of this kind of person at the other end of this kind of phone, and what the tasks are going to involve. So you feel this sense of disorientation and confusion as much as our kind of protagonists, these two kind of guys. And I think the fact that this is set in Senegal gives it a kind of a unpredictability factor, because they kind of fish out of water to a large degree, and you know, it's a kind of a foreign setting to them and probably most of the audience. And you know, you never quite know what the kind of the future is going to hold, and it gives it this kind of this certain sort of feeling of kind of danger and unpredictability, because you know it's just kind of like they're thrown from one situation to the next, and it all looks kind of quite volatile on the kind of the ground there. I think the acting is pretty solid through the movie. You know, our protagonists, we're not giving a lot of information about them, but they kind of they get across some kind of characteristics. You know, we've got one guy who is seemingly some type of lawyer who deals with kind of like maybe you know, high-rolling criminals. The other one is possibly an ex-military guy who has got into crime himself, which will give you some ideas about maybe kind of why these two have been selected, but they each have their own motivations as well. So I think the movie is somewhat clever in regards to feathering in certain kind of details to give you a little bit of scant information at the very least about what these kind of guys are actually, their personalities are like and what they're actually doing there. To a point. I mean, there is a downside which we're going to talk about in a minute, but to a point I do think the movie at least manages to kind of naturally kind of fit in some of these kind of little character moments here and there. By the nature of this movie, I think it's, you know, you are not sure what these guys are going to be asked to do, and their tasks are quite varied, and how they kind of go about it does seem sort of, you know, they have to think on their feet, and because of this, the kind of the tension is kind of quite, you know, palpable to a large degree, I would suggest. And you know, there is some kind of like racing against the clock, because these kind of counters are kind of going down. Can they find a way to escape? You know, they're constantly being watched by kind of a drone. So if you like a kind of a talk thriller, then you may want to kind of check it out. As I said, Willem Dafoe is our antagonist on the phone here, and he gives his trademark cackles and kind of charisma. Even though you never actually see his face, he still is very present in the whole movie. So, you know, if that sounds appealing to you, you might want to check it out. So let's talk about the other side. Let's talk about what maybe does not work. Now, I think the movie, as I say, it tries to incorporate some elements of our characters through the length of this movie. But maybe it's not enough. Because I feel that one of the issues here is you have absolutely no connection to these two American characters. Because we are given next to nothing about them. Really no information outside of they are American and that's about it, and they've been kind of thrown into some situation that they're not sure why. But as such, they're complete strangers to us, and this is done to have reveals through the movie, which I think it's somewhat successful, but at the same time you fail to really connect with these characters because we have no idea who they are. We have no idea if they're good guys or bad guys, what they've done to get in these kind of situations, what their reasons are for being there. And like I say, some of this will get feathered in through the movie, but I think as much as this movie tries to kind of bury the lead because it wants to have reveals later on, the downside of it is I think there is a disconnect between our protagonists because they are pure strangers, and as such it's hard to connect to them, it's hard to feel for them, it's hard to kind of root for them because we know absolutely nothing about them. I have to say as well, I kind of question some of the decisions made by our characters. For example, I suppose our main character, One, played by co-writer and producer Hus Miller, you know, he initially is confronted by police, and all he's going by is he's got this, you can see there's a bomb attached to his chest, and he has got an earpiece and someone telling him to run away from the police. Now, if it was me, I probably wouldn't run away from the police. You know, you try and kind of like think, well, you'd have more of a chance with them than someone who's probably put this bomb on you and telling you to run away and then later on assault the police. And this sets off a chain of events where they can't really now ask for help. And I think, well, why would you do that? It's like the first decision that this character makes. And I get that he's in panic mode, but you know, you've got a situation here where you're choosing to believe someone who's probably strapped this, and who did actually strap this, you know, device to you. And why would you do that? And how did they get this device? There's no real explanation about how this actually kind of happened. You've just got to accept it. Another thing you've got to accept is the kind of the way this, the Willem Dafoe's character, he has planned quite meticulously and quite in a timely fashion, you might say, some of the events that are going to transpire in this movie. And I have to say, it's, you know, to this movie, it all happens as it's supposed to, according to the Willem Dafoe character. But I say there's so many variations and variables that you would have to kind of like take into effect that could disrupt a plan like this. It seems highly improbable that a plan with such meticulous, you know, things would happen without kind of anything going wrong. You know, there's no accounting for any type of variables or any sort of things that you didn't expect happening for these things to happen in such a kind of timely fashion without kind of giving anything away here. It just seems like really quite implausible about the realistic depiction of why these kind of events you know, would happen. Now, you may be asking, why would you choose two white Americans in Senegal who clearly kind of stand out? Now, there is an in-story reason for this, which I won't kind of reveal, that will kind of be towards the finale about what you're understanding about why this happens. What I will say is I think this movie has a somewhat of an anti-American message in it. Now, that may or may not be a negative to some, but it's worth pointing out here that it is somewhat anti-American in some ways, or at least that's how it kind of comes across. I've also got to say, due to the kind of the nature of this movie and how it's kind of portraying, deliberately keeping us as the audience in the dark as to what's happening, it sometimes feels a little confusing and unclear about what is actually kind of supposed to be going on. and some of the kind of the tasks that these two people are required to do, they're so vague. And again, there's no accounting for any kind of variables here. What happens if it didn't go right? I mean, it just seems that this bomber has taken a very kind of roundabout path to it. Let's just say that. So overall, I think this is somewhat of a flawed movie. It's a quite a tense, interesting premise, but it is flawed, and I don't think it's going to be for everyone in that respect, but it's, it is a fun enough kind of time. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I think it's probably a well-made film, although I don't think it's entirely as gripping as maybe it would want to be. Have you seen it? Would you see it? Please do let me know your thoughts, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.